Eli stepped off the shuttle and felt the cold, thin air of the remote mining colony bite at his skin. The colony was unlike any place he had visited before. Massive metal structures stretched toward the purple sky, their surfaces gleaming under the dim light of two suns. Floating vehicles zipped between the towers, leaving trails of light behind them. People, humans and aliens alike, moved with purpose, busy with work, indifferent to outsiders. Eli adjusted his coat and walked toward the administration building. He was a human legal officer, trained to follow rules strictly, and today he was here to inspect paperwork for interspecies contracts, a routine task that usually left him bored, but nothing could have prepared him for what waited inside. As he entered the building, a soft sound caught his attention. It was almost like a whisper, delicate and faint, barely audible over the hum of machinery. He turned the corner and saw a small figure sitting on the floor near the wall. It was a young alien girl, no taller than a human child, with large violet eyes that seemed too old for her face. Her skin shimmered faintly in shades of blue and silver, and delicate wing-like structures sprouted from her back. She held a folded piece of paper in her hand, staring at it as though it were the most precious thing in the universe. Eli approached cautiously. "Hello," he said softly. "Are you okay?" The girl looked up and her eyes widened with a mixture of fear and hope. "Are you a human?" she asked in a small, trembling voice. "I am," Eli replied.
"And you are?"
"My name is Lyra," she said. Her voice had a musical quality, like a song barely remembered. I need your help." Eli frowned, unsure of what to do. "What kind of help?" Lyra unfolded the paper carefully and held it out to him. "This is my last wish," she said. I want to be someone's daughter before I die." Her voice cracked and she looked down, her small hands trembling. Eli's heart tightened. He had read about human compassion in theory, but seeing it in action was different. He looked at the paper. It was written in a mix of alien symbols and human letters, carefully translated. It was a will of sorts, a formal request to be recognized legally as a human child. I don't think that's possible," Eli said honestly. "The law doesn't allow humans to adopt aliens. There's no system for it." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Please, that you're the only human I can ask. Everyone else, they just say it's impossible." Eli knelt down so he was eye level with her. "Lyra, I wish it were that simple," he said. "But rules are rules. If I sign anything, it has to be legal." The girl's lip trembled. "I don't have time for rules," she whispered. I don't have much time left." Eli felt a surge of urgency. He had heard rumors about her species. Rare aliens who lived short lives, far shorter than humans. She was fragile, smaller than most children her age, and every breath seemed like a gift borrowed from time itself. Something in him shifted. He couldn't just leave her like this. He straightened and said firmly, "All right, let me see if there's anything at all I can do." Lyra's eyes widened. You would try?" Eli nodded. "I will try." He took the paper from her and studied it carefully. It was simple, really, in its wish. She wanted someone to be her parent, to sign the papers so she could legally be a daughter, even if just symbolically. She didn't ask for wealth or power, only love. He spent hours in the colony archives, searching through legal codes and regulations. He pored over interspecies contracts, humanitarian laws, and loopholes buried deep in colonial statutes. Most of it was dry and technical, and Eli's head spun from the sheer volume of information. But he refused to give up. Lyra's life was too short to waste any time. As he worked, he learned more about her species. They were called the Veyari, a rare alien race with luminous skin and short lifespans. Their society was simple but deeply spiritual, and they placed immense value on bonds of family. Orphaned Veyari children often went without guidance or love because human colonies didn't recognize them legally. Lyra had been alone for months, surviving with the help of sympathetic workers in the colony, but no one had the authority to make her a child under human law. When Eli finally looked up, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the metallic structures. Lyra was asleep on a makeshift bed of blankets, her breathing shallow. He felt a pang of guilt and determination. He couldn't let her die without experiencing what she wanted most. He returned to the archives the next day and discovered something remarkable: a humanitarian clause buried in the colony's interspecies adoption code. It stated that under extreme circumstances, a human could symbolically adopt a non-human, if it could be proven that doing so was necessary to protect the child's well-being. There were no records of it ever being used, but it was there, a single line that could change everything. Eli felt hope stir within him. He rushed back to Lyra, who was awake and staring out the window at the alien moons. I think there's a way," he said breathlessly. "We might be able to make your wish real." Lyra turned to him, eyes wide with disbelief. "Really?" "I can try," Eli said. "I have to get permission from the colony authorities, and it won't be easy. But I promise I will not give up." For the first time, Lyra smiled. It was a small, fragile smile, but it lit up her entire face. "Thank you," she whispered. I want to be your daughter." Eli felt a lump in his throat. He wasn't used to emotions interfering with his work, but he couldn't deny the bond forming between them. He had become her hope, her protector, and he knew it. The next few days were a race against time. Eli navigated bureaucracy, presented his case to skeptical officials, and argued that Lyra's request was not only humane, but necessary. He spoke of compassion, of the value of family, and of the moral duty humans had toward orphaned aliens. Many dismissed him as idealistic, but some were moved by his sincerity. Meanwhile, Lyra's health declined. She grew weaker, unable to walk long distances, and often sat quietly in her corner holding her folded paper close. She didn't complain, but Eli could see the pain in her eyes. Each day he feared he might be too late. One evening, as he returned to her room, he found Lyra staring at a small window watching the stars. "Do you think I'll see them?" she asked softly. "The stars?" Eli asked. "My people believe that the stars are our ancestors," she said. "I'd say I want to see them before I go." Eli sat beside her. "We will, I promise. I'll make sure you see them." Tears welled in Lyra's eyes, but she smiled faintly. "You're really trying once for me?" "Of course," Eli said. "You deserve it more than anyone." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the authorities approved Eli's request. He could symbolically adopt Lyra under the humanitarian clause. It was official. He could sign the papers and make her last wish real. When Eli entered Lyra's room with the signed documents, she looked up at him, her eyes shining with joy. "Is it true? I'm really your daughter?" Eli nodded, holding back his own emotions. "Yes, you are my daughter, Lyra." She laughed softly, a sound so pure and light that it made Eli's heart ache. She reached for his hand, and he took it gently. "Thank you for making me feel like I belong," she whispered. Eli smiled. "You belong, Lyra, you always did. Now everyone can see it." For the first time in her short life, Lyra felt the warmth of family. She was no longer alone, no longer an orphan. She had a father who cared for her, a human who had defied rules and bureaucracy to make her wish come true. And for Eli, something had changed as well. He had discovered the true meaning of humanity, not the rules or the contracts, but the courage to act with compassion when it mattered most. That night, as Lyra slept peacefully in her new room, Eli gazed out the window at the stars she loved. Somewhere out there, countless children, human and alien alike, needed someone to care for them. And Eli knew with quiet determination that he would not stop. He would protect them, guide them, and ensure that no child, no matter their species, would ever feel alone again. In the distance, the moons of the colony shone brightly, reflecting the bond formed between a human and an alien girl. It was a bond forged not by law, not by obligation, but by the simple truth that every child deserves love. And for Lyra, that bond had arrived just in time. The morning sun rose over the colony, casting soft violet light across the metal towers. Eli stood beside Lyra's bed, watching her stir awake. She looked brighter today, despite her frail frame, as if the knowledge of her wish coming true had given her a spark of life. "Good morning, daughter," Eli said with a gentle smile. Lyra blinked sleepily and then grinned. "Good morning, Dad," she replied, her voice filled with wonder. She had never said those words before, and the sound warmed Eli's heart more than anything in his life. The day was filled with preparations. The colony authorities had allowed a small private ceremony to formalize the adoption. It would be simple but official, with just a few witnesses and Eli as the signatory human. There were no grand halls, no expensive decorations, only a small room, a few chairs, and a sense of quiet importance. Lyra was nervous. Though she had wished for this for so long, reality felt strange. "Do you think everyone will understand?" she asked softly, clutching the folds of her shimmering blue and silver skin. They will, Eli said firmly. They may not know our story, but they will see your smile, your courage. That is enough. The officials arrived, their expressions curious but respectful. One by one, they watched as Eli read the humanitarian clause aloud, explaining why it allowed a human to adopt a non-human child. There were questions, of course, about responsibilities, inheritance and legal rights, but Eli answered each calmly, confidently, showing that his decision was made with care and reason. Finally, the moment came to sign the papers. Eli took the pen, feeling the weight of the act. Not just the legal weight, but the emotional one. He looked at Lyra, who was standing beside him, her eyes bright with hope. "Are you ready?" he asked. Lyra nodded, a small tear escaping her eye. Yes, with steady hands, Eli signed the documents. "By this signature, I officially accept Lyra as my daughter," he said, his voice firm and clear. The room was silent, the air heavy with emotion. Lyra stepped forward and hugged him tightly. "I'm really your daughter," she whispered into his coat. I can't believe it." Eli hugged her back, feeling the warmth of her small body against his chest. "You always were," he said softly. "I just had to make it official." The ceremony ended, but the day was far from over. Eli wanted Lyra to experience life as a human daughter, even if only for a short time. He took her to the colony's observation deck, a place where people could see the stars clearly, their light reflecting off the metal towers. Lyra gasped as she looked up. The night sky was full of stars, more than she had ever seen. 2 moons hung low, casting pale light across the colony, and in the distance nebulae glowed faintly, painting the sky in colors she had only seen in stories. "They're beautiful," she whispered, eyes wide. "My people, they believed our ancestors lived in the stars. I can see them now." Eli sat beside her, holding her hand gently. "They're all watching you, Lyra," he said. "And they're proud. You've been brave even when it was hard." Lyra leaned against him, feeling safe for the first time in her short life. I wish I could stay like this forever," she said softly. Eli nodded, knowing the truth. Her time was limited, and while the adoption had granted her recognition, it could not grant immortality. Still, he refused to let despair enter their day. "We can make today perfect," he said. "You will see, hear, and feel everything you want. I promise." He took her on a small tour of the colony. They visited the gardens where plants from countless planets grew in carefully controlled environments. Lyra laughed as she touched a flower that glowed faintly in the dark. She explored the laboratories, fascinated by machines that hummed and whirred, imagining the stories they could tell. They even went to a quiet courtyard where Eli told her tales of human history, of courage and kindness, of people who had made impossible choices for others. As the day passed, Lyra grew tired, but her smile never faded. She leaned on Eli as they returned to her room, the folds of her shimmering skin reflecting the evening light. "Thank you," she whispered again. "For everything." Eli kissed her forehead gently. "No thanks needed," he said. "You're my daughter. Caring for you is natural." That night, Eli sat by her side as she slept, staring out the window at the stars. He thought about the rare bond that had formed between them, a bond that crossed species, culture, and law. In the vastness of space, amid rules and bureaucracy, compassion had found a way. Lyra stirred slightly, murmuring in her sleep. Eli listened carefully and heard her voice, faint but clear. "I'm happy. I'm loved." Tears welled in Eli's eyes. She had finally felt what she longed for, and it had been his honor to give it to her. In the days that followed, Lyra's health declined further. Her energy waned, and she spent more time resting, though her spirit remained bright. She often asked Eli to sit with her, to tell her stories, or simply to hold her hand. Eli complied without hesitation, never leaving her side, finding joy even in the smallest moments. One evening, Lyra asked him, "Will you keep my memory alive, Dad?" Eli nodded firmly. "I will. Not just your memory, but your dream. I will make sure no orphaned alien feels alone. I will protect them just as I've protected you." Lyra smiled weakly. That makes me happy." The next day, she handed him a small folded piece of paper. "This is for you," she said. "A gift." Eli opened it carefully. Inside was a hand-drawn star map, marking places across the galaxy she had always dreamed of visiting. Each star had a tiny note, a memory, a wish, a story. Though she might never reach these places, she wanted Eli to know where her heart had been "This is beautiful," Eli said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." Lyra reached out, touching his hand gently. I love you, Dad." "I love you too, Lyra," he said softly. That night she fell asleep with a small, content smile. Her breathing was peaceful, her face calm. Eli stayed with her, watching over her, feeling a deep sense of purpose. He knew her time was limited, but he also knew he had given her the greatest gift she could have wished for: family. In her final hours, Lyra spoke softly to him. "Dad, promise me, you'll keep helping children like me." Eli squeezed her hand. "I promise, Lyra, I promise." She smiled faintly, closing her eyes, and took her last breath peacefully. Eli held her close, tears streaming down his face, but he also felt a sense of fulfillment. She had known love, recognition, and care. Her last wish had been granted. After the colony officials had paid their respects, Eli took the star map Lyra had given him and placed it on the observation deck. Night after night he would look at the stars she had marked, remembering her courage, her dreams, and her wish. He became a protector of orphaned aliens, guiding them, advocating for them, and ensuring they knew the warmth of family, even if it was the family humans had created for them. Word of his actions spread across the colonies. Humans and aliens alike began to see the value of compassion over rules, the importance of bending bureaucracy to serve life and happiness. Eli had become more than a legal officer. He had become a symbol of hope, bridging species and inspiring others to act with empathy. Years later, Eli would tell stories of Lyra to new children under his care. "She was a brave girl," he would say, "who reminded me that love is stronger than any law, and family can be chosen, not just given." In the distance, the stars shone as they had for Lyra, countless lights watching over the colony, over the children, and over the man who had dared to sign papers not because they were required, but because they were right. And somewhere in the quiet corners of the galaxy, the memory of a small alien girl who had wished to be someone's daughter continued to inspire hope, compassion, and the humanity that Eli had carried forward for the rest of his life.